Salvete omnes, today we will be discussing Chapter 1 of Wheelock's Latin, in which we will be learning about the conjugation of verbs, the first and second verb conjugations, adverbs, and how to read and translate a Latin sentence. First of all, let's talk about how to greet people in Latin. You probably noticed at the beginning of this video, I greeted you all by saying Salvete omnes. Salvete is the way to greet a large group of people. If you want to greet just one person, you would say salve. Saying goodbye follows a similar formula. At the end of my last video, I said valete omnes. Valete is the way to say goodbye to a large group of people. To say goodbye to just one person, you would say vale. These are all imperative verbs, which you will learn about later in this lesson. Before we get to imperatives, let's first talk about verbs in general. A verb is an action word. The verb has 5 very important aspects. The first is the person or subject of the verb. Verbs can be either first, second, or third person. The second aspect is the number, or how many subjects there are. Verbs can be either singular or plural. The third aspect of a verb is its tense. Latin verbs have 6 tenses: present, imperfect, future, perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect. For the next 2 weeks, we will only be looking at present tense verbs. The fourth aspect of a verb is its mood. The mood of a verb tells in what manner the action is being done. The indicative mood indicates facts, or things that have actually happened. The imperative mood orders actions, making it a command. Think of emperors using the imperative to order people around. The subjunctive mood describes hypothetical or potential actions. You won't need to worry about the subjunctive until Latin 102. Finally, the last aspect of a verb is its voice, which indicates whether the subject performs the action, which is active voice, or receives it, which is passive voice. To conjugate a finite verb, which is a verb that exhibits all 5 of the above characteristics, as opposed to infinitives, which lack a person and number, is to list all of its forms, according to the variations of the 5 aspects. On the screen, you can see the conjugation of the English verb to praise, in the present tense, active voice, and indicative mood. In English, the person and number of a verb are indicated by the pronoun that accompanies it. Thus, a first-person singular subject is indicated by I. A second-person singular subject is indicated by you. A third-person singular subject is indicated by he, she, or it. A first-person plural subject is indicated by we. A second-person plural subject is indicated by you all, or y'all as I like to say. A third-person plural subject is indicated by they. Thus we have I praise, you praise, he, she, it praises, we praise, you all praise, and they praise. In Latin, the person, number, and voice of a verb is indicated by its personal endings. All of the endings for the next few weeks will be in the active voice. The first person singular ending is a long O or an M. The second person singular ending is S. The third person singular ending is T. The first person plural personal ending is moose. The second person plural personal ending is tis. And the third person plural personal ending is nt. Basically, you just need to memorize this. In order to be able to conjugate a Latin verb, you first need to know about the present active infinitive and the present stem. An infinitive is a verb form that is not limited by a subject. It is usually translated as to do the action of the verb. For example, the infinitive of praise in Latin is laudare, to praise. The infinitive of advise is monere, to advise. You will see that all of these forms end in re. The vowel preceding the re in the infinite ending is called a stem vowel. This stem vowel is different for each of the conjugations. Verbs from the first conjugation will always have a long A as their stem vowel. Verbs from the second conjugation will always have a long E as their stem vowel. This stem vowel is important for forming the present stem of a verb. To form the present stem of a verb, remove the re from the infinitive. Thus, the stem of laudare is lauda, and the present stem of monere is mone. In order to form a complete verb in the present tense, add the personal endings to the verb's present stem. I'm going to repeat that because it's very important. In order to form a complete verb in the present tense, add the personal endings to a verb's present stem. Here you can see the conjugation of laudo and moneo. The first person singular of laudo is laudo and is translated as I praise. The second person singular of laudo is laudas and is translated as you praise. The third person singular of laudo is laudat and is translated as he, she, or it praises. The first person plural of laudo is laudamus and is translated as we praise. The second person plural of laudo is laudatis and is translated as you all praise. The third person plural of laudo is laudant and is translated as they praise. The second conjugation does the same thing. Moneo is I advise. Mones is you advise. Monit is he, she, or it advises. Monemus is we advise. Monetis is you all advise. And monent is they advise. A good way to memorize these endings is to practice conjugating with the verbs located in your vocab list. Flashcards will also be your best friend. You just learned how to conjugate first and second conjugation verbs in the indicative mood. This chapter also introduces the imperative verbs. Imperative verbs are commands to one or more people. They are always second person, but can be singular or plural depending on how many people are being commanded. Singular imperatives are easy. They're just the verb's present stem without any endings. Thus, if you wanted to command one person to praise, you would say lauda. If you wanted to command one person to advise, you would say mone. Plural imperatives take the personal ending of te. Thus, if you wanted to command multiple people to praise, you would say laudate. If you wanted to command multiple people to advise, you would say monete. Now for a note on the dictionary entries for verbs. All Latin verbs have 4 principal parts, as you can see with the example of yolo, yolare. For now, you only need to worry about the first 2 for conjugating. Though for memorizing vocab, it is good to memorize all 4 forms now. The first principal part will always be the first person singular present active indicative of the verb. In the example on your screen, that's YOLO. The second principal part will always be the present active infinitive. In this same example, that is YOLARE. This chapter also introduces adverbs. They typically modify a verb, an adjective, or other adverb, and is typically positioned before that word. In English, many adverbs can be recognized by their ly endings, such as happily, sadly, angrily, etc. Other adverbs are less easily recognized, but offer important information about the action of the verb, such as not, often, later, late, twice, etc. You have 2 such adverbs in your vocabulary for this chapter, non, meaning not, and saipe, meaning often. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about reading and translating Latin. This will be very useful for your worksheet, as you will need to read a short Latin story and answer some questions about it. Feel free to write down a translation to help you with this, though I will not ask you to turn in said translation. The first thing you need to remember about translating a Latin sentence is to never read left to right. Because a word's endings indicate its function in the sentence, not its position, Latin word order is very different from English. A typical English sentence has the word order of subject, verb, adverb, object. In Latin, things are a little different. The word order goes subject, object, adverb, verb. I want to warn you though that when reading a real Latin sentence, sometimes authors don't follow this word order at all, due to the fact that the word endings can tell you what the word is doing. Don't worry about that too much for now. Due to its typical word order, the first thing you should do when sitting down to translate a Latin sentence is find the verb. The ending of the verb will tell you what the subject is, its person, tense, and number. Finally, because Latin word order is sometimes messy, you really need to rely on context clues to help you figure out the sense of the sentence. For example, in the sentence on your screen, which is from the story you'll be translating on your worksheet, you have a plural verb, which means you have more than one subject. Maecenas is just one person, and so is Virgilius, who's Virgil, so neither of them can be the subject on their own. However, they are joined by et, which means and, which means you are supposed to take them together. Thus, your plural subject is Maecenas and Virgil. Well, that's it for today, folks. If you have any questions about any of this, be sure to email me. If you're on campus, also feel free to stop by my office hours on Thursday from 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. in AB 6178. Don't forget to complete your forum post. Valete omnes.